So,
Yeah.
how did you know your search has ended? If I were to use that word, is that
Yeah.
would you use that
Yeah,
word?
yeah, I would use that word, sure. I mean, it's hmm. I talk about it, I give a certain sort of poetic rendition of this experience in at the end of my first book, which is called How to Find What Isn't Lost.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so in the last year of my practice, I was doing a lot of intense both self-inquiry and surrender.
Mm.
And I felt like, in retrospect, that the lights were flashing on and off.
Yeah.
I was getting long, intense, what I call now glimpses of the truth.
Mhm.
But then they would fade away and they would fade away and they would fade away. And at a certain point, why at that particular point, no one can say, at least I can't say,
Mhm.
there was something like a deeper seeing into
Mhm.
the, you might say the recursive nature of the mind and of
Mhm.
ignorance. And I think in a way, the glimpses you get, or these glimpses I got or seem to have gotten, like I'll have to asterisk all my assertions, because I have to say, really, I should say immediately, really, that all this narrative about the search and the recognition are really incomplete and incorrect, right?
Mhm.
I'm speaking, and the realization is precisely about the inability of language to capture the truth. So
Mhm.
that's the realization. So if that's the realization, then all this language about the realization and about the search for the realization
Right.
is wrong in a profound sense. So it has to be
Mhm.
understood that this is a frame of reference. The frame of reference is itself precisely what is shown to be wrong
I
by the
see.
realization. So
I
I'm
see.
speaking in a distorted way.
Yeah.
There's all speech is distorted, and this is specifically, especially when you approach the topics of realization, it becomes extremely distorted.
Mhm.
So it's like approaching a black hole, and everything distorts around it. So I have to preface it by saying that. But yeah, so if we want to go with the so-called story of the so-called narrative, then I have to say that in a way, I think in retrospect, the glimpses I had were, you might say, glimpses of the truth, and therefore they were filled with a sense of clarity and insight and peace and beauty and all of that. But I think what happens in the so-called final recognition is there is a profound, immediate uh, 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 um, how do I put it? Yeah, I mean, closest I can put it is, um, in some sense, it's not just the truth that is seen; it's the nature of the illusion. It's the
Mhm.
nature of
Mhm.
the illusion, because
Mhm.
the illusion works in this very, very, yeah, I mean, for lack of a better word, recursive way,
Okay.
and the sense of that, when I say recursive, I mean it's sort of self-referential, the self-referential nature of thought, thought nested within thought, nested within thought, nested within thought. This is the way thought works. And so a seeing that who I thought I was in some sense built in this recursive, self-referential way. Even that this is painting it to be so intellectual. It's not exactly intellectual like this,
Mhm.
but I do think this is one of the byproducts anyway. So yeah, so there's a kind of clarity that comes. Why was it final? Because it had something to do with a clarity about the nature of the illusion, and it did come in a flash, and it was insight. And that insight is there's no possible other way.
Mhm.
There's no there's no possible way that thought can ever stop you from being who you are.
Mhm.
Probably this was, arguably this may have been what the other glimpses also had, but so why was this, it, it's very hard to say why this was quote unquote final and the others were not, but I do think there was, as I say, a little element of this understanding of the illusion that was not in the others. If I were to guess, that's what it really was. There's a sense of, because what happens is in self-inquiry, you're searching for your sense of I. And as you search for the sense of I, you get these, like I say, these glimpses, these moments of recognition, like, oh, this is what I am. But as you have a moment of recognition, what's not recognized in that moment is that moment of recognition is itself an experience. And so even that experience, which is itself pretty much the highest experience you can possibly get, spiritually speaking, is still an experience. And so that still, the problem of the I has not been absolutely fully understood, which is why I tell all my students, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter how mystical it is, no matter how extraordinary it is, you must keep the inquiry going so long as you can keep it going. And you should let the inquiry ripped from you rather than any ever stopping of your own accord. Only when it becomes clear, absolutely clear, that there is no possibility, and there never was any possibility. There never was any possibility, nor there is any possibility of ever being trapped, right? Ignorance never happened. It never happened. It couldn't happen. It's literally nonsensical to believe it could happen. That's when I knew. But yeah, you could easily say that's when who knew. That's true.
Yes.
The idea of knowing is itself self-contradictory in this instance, because the knower can't be who you thought it was. See, the seeker cannot be the finder. The seeker is precisely who you disidentify with. There's a I'm not the seeker. The seeker was the one who seemed to be ignorant. I'm not the seeker. I'm not the seeker. So it's preposterous to say I'm the finder. Who I really am is neither the seeker nor the finder. But this is the realization. So to whom does this realization occur? When you look at to whom the realization occur, the answer must be nobody, because there's only a fictional person whom it occurs. This is the nature of what's happening. So when we talk about it, it goes in these circles and spirals because you can't pin down what's actually going on. There's something which is unspeakable about what's going on. This is why all the scriptures talk in riddles. So yeah. So there's something very, very profoundly meaningless about speech, basically, in a very, very interesting way. We seem to be saying something, but we actually are not saying what we think we're saying. We seem to be asking meaningful questions, and we seem to be putting forth meaningful answers, but this is a kind of illusion.